Bring in Democratic strategist Michael Hardaway for more on this. Former communications director for the House Democratic caucus, and by way of Representative Hakeem Jeffries' office, he now provides intelligence to CEOs through his Hardaway Wire. Michael, welcome. Is this Democratic leadership capable of straddling demands from progressives and moderates? Somebody needs to blink tonight.
You know, Joe, I'm not sure LeBron James could pull out this victory, but I have no doubt that Speaker Pelosi can and will for one reason. And that is whenever you see her dig her heels in on an issue, it's because she knows he has the votes. And she knows that she has the votes on the $3.5 trillion bill with Democrats throughout the caucus, and they want that voted on first before they move forward with the bipartisan Senate bill. Mm-hmm. You also have this dynamic where rank and file House Democrats are disgruntled about the process by which the Senate bill was done.
That's right.
And I think to that end, it's not just Pelosi that's digging her heels in, it's also members throughout the House Democratic caucus. And I think for that reason, the moderate House Democrats will eventually fold, and they'll go along with Speaker Pelosi's demands.
Listen to Michael Hardaway. He's going right for it. I appreciate that, Michael. That's your belief, and it's based on history, right? We think back to what happened with the ACA, the debate around Obamacare. The deal was left for dead. Nancy Pelosi made her bones yet again in that moment. Do you think then this is some sort of sleight of hand by this group of 9 moderates? They all know they're going to fold, but they get to tell voters that they fought for what their district needed in the end.
That's exactly right. But the reality is, you know, if those moderates were playing three-dimensional chess, they would say to themselves, let's support the $3.5 trillion bill, knowing that when it gets to the Senate, it's in trouble. Let's support it in the House, and then we get the Senate bill that we want passed into law. That seems to not be their case. They seem to be focused on being able to tell their voters that they opposed this initially, but they'll eventually fold. And, you know, the reality is that I've seen this multiple times with Speaker Pelosi. When she says we'll get something done, it's because she knows what the whip count is on every single occasion. And there's no doubt in her mind that she's got the votes to get that done.
Remembering there are, of course, stages here. There are a lot of votes that lead up to a bill becoming law. Sometimes people might feel one way in the outset, the procedural vote, then they vote a different way on the underlying bill. Michael Hardaway, do these moderates vote for the resolution with the idea that they could later withhold their votes on reconciliation? Is that where you're going?
I think that's generally the strategy, but I see them voting for both.
Wow.
I think what you'll see is a process where they'll feel better about the $3.5 trillion bill, because ultimately I think that number becomes much smaller by the time it gets to the Senate. I think much of it is also paid for. And so I think those House moderates will not only vote for the rule, but they'll vote for the eventual final vote on the reconciliation bill.
We're talking with Democratic strategist Michael Hardaway, former communications director for the House Democratic caucus. He's been there, and I'm sure you're still in touch with a lot of these folks. Does this make the case then, Michael, for having veterans in leadership? You remember, of course, there was a real challenge to Nancy Pelosi for getting that gavel back, but if she gets deals like this done, does that make the case for her continuing to hold it?
I've been in way too many of these meetings that House Democrats will be holding this evening at 5:30, and I can tell you that the Speaker will preside over this in a way that moves the ball forward. And to answer your question, you absolutely need experience, but I think the smart way to do this is you have a good mix of the energy from the younger, more aggressive members, and then you have the seasoned legislators that know how to get things done, and you put them together.
Mm-hmm. So take us for a moment inside that meeting then, Michael. How is this going to take place? You said the Speaker will preside. You're going to have those members. Does she put them in the back row? Is there a little punishment, or do you put them in the front row and deal with them firsthand in front of everybody, right? This will be done in front of the whole family.
This will be done in front of the entire family. Technically, House Democratic Caucus Chairman Hakeem Jeffries hosts the event, and Speaker Pelosi is sort of the orchestrator of the event. But Hakeem Jeffries technically hosts it, and you'll have a situation where the Speaker will open up, and she'll lay out her case in terms of why she thinks we need to move forward in the way that we need to, and then she'll open up the floor and allow any members to speak out their wish to. And I would say to you that I anticipate, there are 9 or so moderate House Democrats that are in opposition. I think you'll have no more than 2 that speak up. You'll probably see Josh Gottheimer, the leader of that group. He'll likely speak up, and then maybe one other person. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, they'll fold, whether it's this evening or whether it's later. I think they'll eventually come on board.
Fascinating. Pelosi sent a letter to her caucus over the weekend, and it says, any delay to passing the budget, this is a dear colleague, you're in trouble when you get a dear colleague letter, any delay to passing the budget resolution threatens the timetable for delivering the historic progress and the transformative vision that Democrats share. So we're supposed to imagine Nancy Pelosi saying this while she's making eye contact with those who are opposing this plan, right? Is that how you take care of this in the room right there and then?
Nancy Pelosi is about 5'3", and she's one of the most intimidating people I've ever seen. And I would say to you that that's exactly right. The people who oppose this effort, she will require them to speak up and explain in front of the entire caucus why that is, and the conversation will be had. And that's a tough effort when there are 8 or 9 of you, and you're going against, 211 or 212 people. And I think that will be a difficult case for Gottheimer and the rest of the moderates to make.
Now I'm nervous. I'm not even in this meeting. What happens to Gottheimer after this is done? If he backs out gracefully, and we have less than a minute here, Michael, does his career stay intact? Is he in the Speaker's good graces?
He'll be perfectly fine. He's well respected and liked throughout the caucus. And at the end of the day, he represents this group on all of these issues. And he's always a fair arbiter and negotiator in these situations. And so I think from the perspective of the Speaker, from the perspective of Hakeem, Jeffries, and others, they have a good relationship with Gottheimer, and I think he'll be perfectly fine.
This is why he's paid to provide political intelligence to CEOs. Democratic strategist Michael Hardaway, we thank you for the insights today on Sound On. Coming up, we bring